All right, everybody, this is the Armory Park Historic Zone Advisory Board meeting. I'm getting a lot of feedback from someone on February 21st. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you all for attending. First, let's do roll call.
Just to be clear, muted John Burr because the feedback was coming from him.
Understood. Tom Beal? You're muted, please. John Burr?
Present.
So Tom Beal is here. Sorry about the muting.
No problem, Tom. Maurice?
Present.
Very good. And we have Helen,
Yes, here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes, sir. I'm right here.
Very good. And I am here as well. And we have an alumnus here. Martha's joining us. Yay.
Please don't forget Sarah, because we're not letting her slide out.
Sarah, I'm so sorry.
I too am present.
Terrific. Okay. So all accounted for. And next on the agenda, sorry, I have to pull that up. We have the approval of the minutes from our last meeting in December. Anybody have any objections to approving the minutes? None heard. All in favor of approving the minutes?
You have to get a motion and you have to get a second and then you have to do a roll call.
Sure, sorry. We have a motion to approve the minutes, please.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
And a second
I'll second the motion.
and a roll call. Tom Beal,
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
abstain. Maurice,
Aye.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes,
Mr. Burr,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I have to abstain. I was at that meeting as well. Approved. And next on the agenda, we have call to the public. Is that correct? So
Call the audience.
Yeah, I'm looking at two screens here. Call to the audience. Would anything come in, Jody? Did anything?
We didn't receive any call to the audience comments.
No call to the audience.
No.
Okay. Next, we go to elections. May I hear a nomination? We want to do chair, vice, and secretary. We'll do it the secretary first. Nomination for the secretary of the board.
I've done it, and it kind of depends upon where we go. We should probably start with a chair and move down.
Very good. May I have a nomination for the chair of the board?
This is Helen. If
Hi,
you-
Helen.
I nominate John Burr.
Nomination heard for John Burr. May I have a second, please?
Yes, it's Tom. I'll second the nomination.
Very good. Nominated and second for John Burr to serve as chair of the board. And we'll go to the roll call. Tom,
Aye.
okay, Sarah,
Aye.
Mr. O'Brien,
aye.
Maurice,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
I vote aye. John,
Aye.
that is passed. You are the chair of the board for the upcoming term. Nominations for vice chair.
Anyone interested?
Yeah, okay. I'll go for vice chair.
Great.
I
I
will
nominate
second,
Maurice Roberts for vice
Very
chair.
I will second that nomination.
Is that you, Robin?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
Tom, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Mr. O'Brien,
Aye.
Mr. Burr,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
and Maurice.
Aye.
And I vote aye. And secretary,
Okay.
since John is serving as the chair, we need someone to take that role.
We need someone to take minutes. However, the bylaws do state that it doesn't have to be as onerous. I know that I have done very lengthy minutes over the years at the direction of the board. Just simple notes will do, but the bylaws do say that the secretary should send them to me and I should forward them to Jody. So if any minor corrections need to be made, I can still do that. If it helps.
Is
Anyone interested?
everyone interested in taking the minutes? Once,
Sarah? Tom?
Do I remember correctly that we only have 3 years at a time? And I think I'm up in July then.
Yeah, no, your term doesn't end till December 31st. And I think you may actually have a year or two more. I've got 2 more years. I'm not sure who expires at the end of this calendar year. I'll have to do a review.
I expire at the end of this calendar year, and so I'm not willing to take any duties on, and I would be a bad secretary because as you might have noticed, my attendance has not been good this past year, and I don't expect things to improve.
Sarah, would you be willing to do just a basic draft and I can help fill in?
Yeah, I can do that.
That'd be great. But then I'm happy to nominate Sarah Bachman-Williams as secretary.
I'll second.
Maurice seconds. A roll call, Tom,
Aye.
Maurice,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Mr. Burr.
Aye.
Hi, Helen, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote as well. Aye. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. With that, I think I will turn that over to you, Mr. Burr, to run the meeting.
Okay.
Hey, John, just to interrupt,
Fine.
are you gonna still be taking the minutes or do you want Sarah to start doing that now too?
I am recording it. I'm happy to do this edition of the minutes and send them to Sarah to use as a template.
Be super lovely. Thank you.
Just because, I've got experience with it and I'm set up to do it fairly easily, but she can take over for next month. Is that all right, Jody?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify if she should be taking it or if it's you doing it.
Yeah, I write them up afterwards from both recordings, so I'll do that one last time. Okay, agenda item 5, reviews. We have 2 tonight, and item A is SD 0223-00022, 211 South 4th Avenue. Change of use from a residence to a bed and breakfast and special event venue. Full review, contributing resource, estimated time. I know we have presenters. Jody, do you want to provide us guidance on this one of what our purview is before we get the presentation?
Really, it's just a change of use. They are changing from a residence, family residence to bed and breakfast. It's we've done these before with PRS. It's a pretty simple thing. But because it's in a historic district, it does require the review, but it should be pretty quick and dirty.
Okay, my understanding is that it is zoned HC3 and all the improvements are existing and parking is not the purview of this board. Is that correct? Jody?
Correct. You're not reviewing the parking or anything like that.
Okay, so it's just a change of use. Okay, great. Who's Michael? I think you're presenting. Michael Boren.
I'm going to be presenting. I'm the architect. Michael and his wife Camara are the owners. Jody, can I maybe?
Great. Welcome, Rachel.
Ray, you should be able to share just fine. Mike or John, can you mute yourself because it's giving a lot of feedback. Thank you. Is it being wonky and not letting you share?
Let me, I think I got it here. Okay.
Okay.
It wasn't letting me select a screen. It was making me select a, oh no, it's, hang on, let me stop and try again because it's like not letting me, there we go.
That doesn't look like 211 South 4th.
No, that was not it. That was another project up in Pinal County. Okay, so just a brief history of this project with the current owners as they purchased it back in 2017. It's been operating as a bed and breakfast, and now they're trying to do a civil assembly venue as well. All of these things are allowed within the zone. And as Jody and you had already mentioned that parking isn't really part of the purview, and that's really the only changes that we have going on with this project. So here's the development zone. The subject property are the three historic houses here shown. Like I said, we're not suggesting any changes to that. Here's some street views of the area. I'm sure you guys are all familiar as it's your neighborhood, obviously. Back in 2017, this parking area was added with the gate and all of that was approved. The HPZ number is referenced in the narrative. So the only thing that we actually are changing and is to meet some of the zoning requirements is we're adding 2 large shade trees. So here's the parking. We're going to be adding 1 tree here and 1 tree here. We're eliminating 2 parking spots to accommodate some bicycle parking just to meet some zoning requirements. So really that's it. We're just seeking the approval from you guys for the change of use. It's pretty simple. And then the owners are here if you guys have any questions about the actual operations.
Board members, any comments?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Maurice.
Okay. I was reading the paperwork that you guys put on the internet, and I'm just curious, but where are you going to put the bike racks?
Yes.
Sorry, repeat your question. Where are the bike racks located?
Oh, where? I thought you said, are we going to place them? Sorry.
Yeah, here's a zoomed in plan. So this is along 12th Street. They're going to be right here. Let me go back to that picture. You can kind of see. So they'll sort of be kind of where this SUV is located if you're looking at this photo. So they wouldn't be visible. This fence would be screening most of it. But yeah, they'll be in this little corner here. And then we're planting a tree sort of where the cursor is right here. And then another tree kind of just on the other side of this wall with the vines. Sorry, I've got little boys behind me. That's the joys of Zoom.
So that's one question. The second question I have is, I own a property on South Railroad Avenue, just south of your gates. Now, I understand you're going to have some venues. Okay. I have some tenants in there. Are you going to have live music or what's, and if you do, how late is this going to be going?
I guess I could answer that. I mean, the plan is going to be, yes, we might, depending on the decision of the people that are having the event, it's possible. We prefer DJs and that sort of thing. But the plan will be to follow the rules, and it's basically, the end of use, 9:30, 10 o'clock, whatever it is there in the neighborhood, to make sure that we shut things down completely at that time.
That's very reasonable. Okay. Now, as far as traffic flow, okay, when your clients leave the parking area, are they going to go south or north?
Well, most of the clients won't be in Railroad. There won't be much, there's not enough parking there to accommodate an event. So the parking will not be set up there. And as mentioned, it's not really under the purview of this, but we've arranged for parking at the Safford School. So it'll be out on 4th Avenue.
Sounds very good. I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, did you have comments?
No, I was just going to move to approve the project. So I can do that. I would make a motion in the matter of SD 0223 0022 211 South 4th Avenue, that we recommend approval of the project as presented.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? I do have one curiosity question. Being in the neighborhood and being on the neighborhood association board, how did you finagle a parking arrangement with Safford? Because they have always been unable or unwilling to work with anybody wanting to use their parking through TUSD standards. So I'm just curious, what sort of, is it a verbal agreement or a written agreement?
Yeah, so it's very interesting because you basically go online, and I was looking for options, and you sign up and you basically say, I want to reserve the lot for this day for this many cars. And there's a woman who works there who's been extremely helpful, and you basically fill out an application and they approve it. So just to show it was done to satisfy the city, I did a fake one. I pretended I was reserving it, and it's not an issue. Anyone can do it. Any of you could do it. We're all allowed to use it because it's public space and we all pay taxes for it. So you have the right to reserve it, and it's very minimally expensive. So you have to have insurance and pay for security, but that's all kind of part of the package. So they were very amenable and very agreeable.
That's great to hear. It's a substantial policy change, so I'm glad to hear of it.
Yeah, I can get you the woman's name. I forget. I haven't talked to her in a while, but she's phenomenally helpful and just says, anyone can do this. She says, even the city uses us. And she says, we wish people would use it more because it generates income for the schools.
All right. When you do invites for various activities and things, will you also direct people not to park in front of people's front door or gate or that sort of thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I expect them to park at the school. That would be the ideal situation. Yeah.
Okay, great. You meet all the code things. This is just a change of use, so I think it's fine. Let's go ahead and call the question. All right. Tom.
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
I say aye. Pat.
Aye.
Maurice.
Aye.
Helen.
Aye.
Robin.
Aye.
Passes by a roll call vote of 7. Great. Thank you so much. Good luck with it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank
Appreciate
you very
that.
much. I
We'll
appreciate your
continue to be
time.
good neighbors.
All right, you're
If we're not,
welcome.
let us know.
Good luck, guys.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Great. Back to the agenda, item 5B, SD 0123-000-13275 East 18th Street. And I guess you're all back. Looks like Jim's here and Michael Shiner. Is Scott coming, or who's presenting tonight?
Here as well. This is Jim Sauer. I'll coordinate the presentation, and we've got a couple different team members to present different pieces of it.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and why don't you run away, and then we'll do our questions.
Sure. So we were here back in February of 2022, 1 year ago, for a courtesy review, and I'm just curious: are there people who are on the advisory board that weren't part of the advisory board at that point? Or is everybody familiar with the project from then? Okay, so Maurice, I see a hand up. So hopefully you've had a chance to review. I'm going to skip past the project narrative. Hopefully we'll cover all that when we're going through the images. But if you have any questions about any of the narrative items, please bring them up. So this is a pair of currently vacant lots, 6 blocks south of the previous project. It's corner of 18th and 4th Avenue. Hopefully you've all had a chance to check it out. I've got some Google Street View images of the lots, but they're pretty vacant. There are a few trees that we'll have to remove, and that'll be discussed as part of the landscape, the plan. So here is our development zone. It's somewhat complicated because we have 2 corners that we're working with, the corner at Herbert and 18th and the corner at 4th and 18th. And there's a pretty wide variety in this development zone. There's 3 duplexes across 4th Avenue from us. There's a couple of triplexes across Herbert. And you'll see a variety of setbacks from what looks like 0 lot line on all sides for this bakery building that you guys probably are familiar with, or even this building kitty corner from us, to things that have a larger setback. So we'll talk about that when we show the project in context. So here's what we're proposing, and this is we're currently in the flexible lot development phase of the project. We're trying to basically get approval for the lot split, but because of the interaction between the historic review and the lot split, we're coming to you. And I'll explain what we're asking for when we get to that. And in a minute, I'll ask Scott, the lead designer on this, to walk through the architectural piece of this. But here's the project in context. There's our 6 proposed single-family homes. They're all 3-bedroom, 3-bath. The one on the corner of 4th and 18th is the largest, and we're proposing that with an ADU. That will have a 2nd story under a hip roof with a big gable facing north. The others are flat roof and single story. And you can see here which ones are the contributors. You can also see that the duplexes and the triplexes and some of the setbacks. We're proposing, I think it's a 5-foot and 6-foot setbacks along the street, and 0 or 3-foot setback on the side lots, which kind of matches. We think it's compatible with the neighborhood, and we'd like to hear your guys' feedback on all of this. Oh, I think this is my last slide before I hand it over. Oh, and I'll do this slide, and then I'll introduce some more people from the team. So these are just some of the precedents that we were looking at on 17th Street. There's a hip roof, rather tall building that we're using for our height precedent on our hip roof building. I think it's on Herbert is our height precedent for the flat roof parapets. Here's the bakery on 4th Avenue that I mentioned. That's kind of a 0 lot line project, but also here on 17th and Herbert, there's another building that appears to be right on the lot line. And the duplexes here and triplexes. So I should have let Michael Shiner introduce himself and the project a little bit. Maybe the vacant land is the right place for Michael, for you to chime in and explain the history, your history with the project.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much, Jim. First of all, good evening to everyone. My family and I currently live in Armory Park del Sol. We purchased our home here in 2015. And there's things, of course, we love about it, especially the surrounding neighborhood and our specific neighborhood here in APDS. I'm born and raised here in Tucson, grew up on the northwest side of town, went to South Point Catholic High School, and then down to the University of Arizona twice, where I got a degree in regional development, and then went back in 2013 and got my master's in business administration. So Tucson is clearly home, love Tucson. I have 2 amazing, energetic, loud boys, which you might hear at some point because bedtime's in about 20 or 30 minutes. Theodore, who's 5, and Arlo's, who's 2. So if you haven't seen us around the neighborhood, if you do, please give us a wave and we'd love to say hello. On our journey around Armory Park, I've seen this vacant parcel over the years and told myself if there was ever a chance to do something special with it, it would be an honor if I could do so. So last year I purchased it from the Elias family. If you know Robert Elias and his family, they grew up in that house directly to the north, the red brick house, which looks fairly odd in our neighborhood. It's not a historically contributing structure, but he and his well-known family lived there for many, many years. And I was fortunate enough to buy the 2 parcels directly to the south and the west about a year now. And so carefully looking at a team, spoke with Scott Neely, who quickly introduced me to Jim Sauer, who's been on historic review committees for a number of years here in Tucson, and really wanted to be conscientious about the team I was building before we ever started doing product ideation or going any step further. And very happy, very pleased. Scott's done some amazing work. If you haven't seen in the barrio, primarily his office at 18th and Main on the northeast corner. Definitely want to take a look at that and stop by and say hi to Scott. So through this process, we really wanted to do a highest and best analysis. Of course, the HC3 zoning, I didn't say that correctly, the historic R3 zoning, not C, R, allowed for a much higher density, but we didn't feel like that was the highest and best use or would fit in the context of the overall neighborhood. My background is in brokerage and development. My office, CXT Realty, is located at Cushing and Convent Street in the barrio. Done infill housing throughout Tucson, whether at Black Legend Park or Old Spanish Trail. Wanted to do something in a historic zone, and this lot presented an amazing opportunity. And through this process, we thought 6 homes was the ideal density, using that back avenue, which is technically not an alley, but really having 3 amazing streets and access points. And how do we do elevations? How do we tie everything in the neighborhood? And of course, having that very, very special frontage along South 4th Avenue, where we decided to really have a prominent featured home there on that specific corner. And this is really where I'd love to hand it off to Scott, where he's the genius behind some of this design and the configuration of how can we really maximize the land. In the scope of things, it's a very big plot of land for Armory Park. It's a very special piece. And we have people that want to move to Tucson and want special homes here. And how can we balance having great indoor space with very usable, functional outdoor space, which we know is really a premium, especially in our neighborhood. So Scott, would you take it away and really get a little more into the details here for us, please?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Just echoing what Michael said, we just feel that it's a really, really important lot in Armory Park in the neighborhood plan, and wanted to do a project that's worthy of the important site. It's a busy site. There's a lot of car traffic. It's on the 18th Street bikeway, and there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. And I think as the Baffert's completed and there's more development in the barrio and Armory Park, it's going to be busier. I think in particular, we wanted to focus on the pedestrian experience. I think we'd all agree at this point that walk along 18th Street is a little raw. So that we've really focused on that. And Matt, the landscape architect, is going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. I'd like to spend just a couple minutes and give you an overview of our architectural intentions, and then talk about some of the revisions that we've made since the meeting a year ago based on the feedback that we got at the courtesy review. I think we've designed a group of 6 houses that are not all the same, but reflect some of the diversity, the architectural diversity in Armory Park in the development zone. The houses there, we want them to read as contemporary so that we distinguish the new construction from the old, but we want them to echo the existing sort of rhythms and patterns, scale, proportions, materials of the existing houses. We've as I think as Jim said, we've got a mix of sizes. From the Herbert houses are about 1,600 square feet. The 18th Street house is a little over 1,700 square feet. The 4th Avenue and 18th Street is 22 or 2,300 square feet. And then there's like a 400 square foot accessory dwelling unit. On the streetscapes, we wanted to create a hierarchy so that the most important spot on that site is the intersection at 4th Avenue and 18th Street. So the most important house is there, it's the largest house, which is house 1. And then the next in hierarchy is the mid-block 18th Street house, and then the 4 houses along Herbert, which are the smallest. Let me, and in the courtesy review a year ago, I think the most substantive concerns were about the way that house 1, the corner house at 4th Avenue and 18th Street read, particularly on 4th Avenue. There was concern that the accessory dwelling unit was expressed very much as a small house, and that there wasn't a precedent for that. So we looked at a way that we could kind of rework that facade, make it sort of a more generous opening on the street, and really tie the accessory dwelling unit into the main house. So now the entrance to the accessory dwelling unit is to the side or the back, and we've attached it to the main house with it's all stucco. We've also reworked the floor plan of the main house so that the living space faces 4th Avenue there, and we have the large bank of windows. I think there was a concern before. Jim, can you flip back to the slide that shows the before on that? I think it's 1.3. Yeah. So you can see I think it was difficult to read that 4th Avenue elevation of the main house. But with the enlarged porch, I think it feels different. It feels more connected to the street. As we go around, let's go back one. Jim, go to 1.2, please. We made some small changes on the 18th Street elevation of that first house so that the casings match on the garage doors. I think everything else is the same. On the mid-block 18th Street house, we relocated the gutter and downspout and changed the massing a little bit to simplify it. Just think it has a more pleasing appearance with the 2 volumes instead of the 3 as we originally presented it. On the south facade of the Herbert Avenue house, house 3, we relocated the scuppers and downspouts and added a sort of reveals to break the wall up into sort of smaller pieces. I think then going back on Herbert Avenue, these are we looked at some other options. We looked at the spaces between, and we're at 3'4" between foundations, so we'd have a net just over 3 feet once the finishes are on, which provides the minimum clearances for egress and codes. We changed from the vertical board garage doors and doors will remain on the 4th Avenue 18th Street house and then the 18th Street mid-block house, but we've changed the Herbert Avenue facades so that these would be metal garage doors, probably a rusted metal that would tie in with the planter boxes in front, and that's a wood door. Otherwise, it is the same. Well, we've relocated two of the scuppers, and I think that's
pretty good overview. We can walk through the landscape and then we can take questions unless there's something pressing right now. All right, I think Matt is here from ARC Studios. Oh, we also added a sheet here that has a bunch of materials. If there's any questions about that, let us know. Matt, are you here?
I'm here.
All right.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt. I'm with ARC Studios. I'm one of the landscape architects on this team. I will run through the landscape real quick. As Scott mentioned earlier, the Baffert project. We were a landscape architect on that project, so if you're familiar with that, there are similar themes that carry from that project to this project. Overall, the intention is a very native desert landscaping. When you think of native and desert, it's not all thorns and cactus. We pulled some flowering perennials and trees that would complement the area, as well as kind of ground the houses and fit with some of the themes. Scott, do you have a plan of the landscape?
Jim, do you have a plan of the landscape?
Yeah, is this?
There we go.
A good
Thanks.
drawing to work from, Matt?
I think the one that
Yeah.
one, probably, yeah.
If you can zoom in on we'll start at South Avenue or South 4th and kind of work to the west, and then I'll go back and review the plant images. So I won't touch on everything, but there's some key things I want to highlight. So on 4th Avenue, we are keeping the existing oaks. We're adding one more to complement. And then as far as existing trees on the site, was mentioned earlier that we're going to be removing some of the existing vegetation. There are a few natives on site. There are 2 mesquites. Unfortunately, those have to be removed. They're in the way of the buildings and they are too large to transplant, but we will be mitigating for them with other species. There are also some ironwoods on Herbert Avenue. They are too small to categorize to keep for native plants, but we will do our best to try to transplant those and use them where we can. With that, all the new planting will be along the building facades and in the streetscape. We are proposing utilizing the right-of-way in coordination with the city. This area will be for rainwater harvesting, taking all the water from the downspouts through scuppers and into that area. That there is a historic sidewalk on East 18th that we are minimizing disturbances to with those scupper locations. So in strategic areas, there will be a sidewalk cut and a steel channel put through to direct water to those basins. All the landscaping, as I mentioned earlier, is native or near native to the Sonoran Desert, but primarily to the Tucson area. And it is landscaping designed to fit with the scale of these buildings, the water harvesting, and with the proximity of the sidewalk. So as I mentioned earlier, there's no sharp thorns, no branches to impede movement. It fits with the character that exists in Armory Park. We've taken an inventory of the area and pulled a lot of plants to make it match and blend. The other element included in the landscape are some steel planters. These will be about 12 inches deep, 18 inches high, and they'll be filled with other cactus and succulents. Lastly, with the landscaping along 4th Avenue, or sorry, Herbert Avenue, the ground treatment is going to be concrete pavers. So the concrete pavers are a 4x8 concrete paver, and they will closely mimic existing clay brick pavers found in the neighborhood. Jim, can you please go back to the plan images?
Sure. The palette or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is quickly the palette that we're proposing. The first images are the trees. So as I mentioned, we are going to add in one more oak to complement the 2 that are existing. And then the rest of the trees are smaller in stature to help with that close proximity to the buildings and sidewalk, but also ones that will give color. So we will get color out of the Mexican redbud. We will get color, even though it's always green, but there's a textural with the bark with the little leaf ash, and then some other smaller trees with the rosewood, desert cotton, the ironwoods that we may be able to transplant. And then the largest tree on site will be the netleaf hackberry, and those will go more towards the rear yards. There will be grasses, native shrubs with differing colors from pink to the orange and purples, as you see. And then on the next slide gets more into the cactus that we're proposing. So native cactus or near native cactus, blue barrels, aloes, a variety of yuccas, some slipper plants against the building. And then the ground treatment is going to be decorative rock, both riprap and the Catalina rock and wildcat red gravel. All these can change as we work through it to complement the building and complement the neighborhood.
Great, thanks, Matt. And and I'll add one more thing before we get into the Q&A. But so one of the reasons we're here is because the FLD process would require any FLD project has to have curbs and sidewalks that meet current code. And our preference, and I think your preference, strong preference, would also be not to put a curb and sidewalk in the right of way on Herbert. It doesn't make any sense for a whole bunch of reasons, including historic preservation reasons. And also, we want to preserve as much as we can the sidewalk and curb along 18th and 4th, where we did find some WPA stamps in both the curb and the sidewalk. So we're coming to you, and hopefully we can get a recommendation for the setbacks we're proposing, and all the curb and sidewalk variances from standard FLD practice. So with that, I'm trying to think of what slide to end on. I'll just leave this one up and hand it back to John and commissioners and see what kind of questions you guys might have.
Okay. I do want to thank you. I think you've done a great job with the 3 street-facing facades, especially the house of the corner. It now looks like one continuous house, and the 80, so that it sets things up. We've done 3 reviews. Several reviews with continuing cases. We've reviewed 2 different FLD projects in the district over the last number of years. But what I think we need to remind everybody is we are basically approving 6 new houses, and each one of those have their own design requirements. And this is one of those things where FLD submittal requirements are somewhat different than historic submittal requirements. So I'm just going to comment up front that we do not have a north elevation for the project, nor do we have any elevations for each of the building faces, which are a requirement for per 5.8.9 design review. So, and in terms of denominations, we have total height of individual buildings, but the actual dimensional standards for any of the rest of us for us to comment or review are not there. And there is also not a door and window schedule. Obviously, we've recently changed it so that we can accommodate new materials. So I don't have a problem with fiberglass or wood edged problems, and I don't think the board will generally. But we should have a data page for that sort of stuff. I'm going to open it up to the board before I have specific questions from me. So who wants to start?
Well, let me comment just briefly before we get to that, John, on what you said.
Sure.
Yeah, it is challenging. And having been on plans review subcommittee, we're at the point where we're trying to get permission to divide this into 6 lots. So we've provided as much information as we can at this point in the process. And in fact, we were pushed back a couple of times by Jody appropriately for more information, including colors and materials. But it's challenging to spend a lot of time designing a project in that level of detail, including window schedules and door schedules, without knowing that we're going to be able to split the lots. So there is a little bit of chicken and egg in the process here. So we're trying to find the right balance of not having to, completely design construction documents for a building that we don't even know if we have a lot for. So
Well, the
we're trying to
materials
find the
are
right
called
balance.
out. The materials are called out on that other sheet, Jim.
Yeah, we do. And that's why we did add this. For all the doors and windows, I think we do provide materials. We don't have cut sheets on what exact window manufacturer we'll be using, but you can appreciate at this point in the project that that's not what we would know.
I fully understand that. And conceptually, I I am familiar enough with FLD standards that I know that you've generally met them because for instance, you're close enough to a park.
Right.
But there's also little things like parking requirements for guest parking, handicap for various properties and the other stuff. And none of that is specifically spelled out. It also does require that one of the buildings is a second story and that the windows don't overlook an adjoining property, and we don't know because we can't see. So from our perspective, it may be incomplete. We could rule theoretically on just the FLD and the settings. Our previous guidance said maybe cut it down to 5 buildings and have a little bit more space, but you're showing a 3-foot setback from a northern property where you're building a 16-foot wall with just 3 feet right up against a property line. And we're not seeing the details of that to see if the setbacks you are proposing are necessary compliant with the way it sits overall in the neighborhood without a little bit more information, in my humble opinion.
John, could you clarify your setback? Is it on the home at 4th and 18th on the hard corner where the ADU buffers between the existing red brick structure?
I am less concerned about the original Elias house. I'm more concerned about the property on Herbert Avenue to the north that is, per these plans, right on the property line. I went out and looked at it. It's actually set back a little bit from their fence line, but I don't know the.
So those would be the 4 homes along Herbert then you're referencing?
Yeah, there is
The northernmost home on the avenue
north that you're going to be building right up next to, and we're not seeing anything in relationship to that. And I know that 3 feet is the minimum, but theoretically, we should know if there are windows, what the courtyards look like. From the plans I'm seeing tonight, it looks like anybody who uses their outdoor space has to take everything in and out the front door, little stuff like that.
Well, the 3-foot setback is consistent with other setbacks in the development zone. I mean,
I'm not saying that it may not, but I'm also saying that in my mind, I'm not so sure that there's enough information to approve each of all 6 buildings in it.
Right. I guess
separately. This will be our only review. And it's hard for us to review 6 new houses with only 1 elevation of each.
Right. Jim, am I incorrect? I thought in all the historic reviews we've done, we've presented street side elevations. We haven't presented elevations perpendicular to the street.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know that we would ever have a north elevation for a historic review of like the corner house on 18th and 4th. I can see where a north elevation of this one on Herbert might make more sense. Although that will be behind a fence, so it you know, any windows and doors on there will probably be obscured by the fence. But it's a good question, and I mean, I thought we had provided everything that we were asked for, but
you have provided everything that the FLD process asked for, but not necessarily everything that HPZ review does.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
thought we had provided everything that Jody had asked for. As part of
I
the
did too, based on the courtesy review.
I think we should open it up. I'm in a different position now as chair, so I think we need some feedback from the board of their questions on things. Who's first?
Well, I have a few questions.
Sure, go ahead, Maurice.
Okay, so I'm just curious, but I own a property right across the street on 18th Street. You know, you're showing properties on 4th Avenue, you're showing properties on 17th Street that, you know, you're taking for, for contributing properties, but I don't see anything on the south side of 17th Street, right across the street from your property. Now, if you look at those 3 houses across the street, they don't look nothing like what you intend to put up, which, don't get me wrong, okay, and that's, you know, we've passed the time Victorian, mansions, they're no longer, financially viable, and I understand that. Okay. I also appreciate the fact that you are sort of replicating the one-story rental houses apartment on Herbert Avenue. That looks pretty good to me. There's a couple of points that I raised at the last meeting that we had, which I don't think have been addressed though. If you look at 18th Street, okay, 18th Street is expanding as a main artery of Armory Park. There's a whole bunch happening 2 blocks away with the Baffert, with the whole intersection over there. And on the east side, you have you also have some commercial properties which are doing extremely good business. And what's going on is that, as we go along, we're going to start to develop a walking 18th Street. Okay, people are going to walk there, not on 4th Avenue, but on 18th Street they will. Okay. And like I said, we approached another subject the last time, which, so far I don't think has been considered. I understand that, Michael, you live in Armory Park del Sol, so you're enjoying, if I'm not mistaken, a garage in the back of your house. Am I correct? Are you there,
Yes.
Michael?
You are
Okay.
correct, Maurice. All homes in Armory Park del Sol have attached garages.
Right, which has been one of the reasons why that subdivision has been so successful, because they've kept the avenue opened. So it looks like a village, not like a parking lot. Now, if I look at the 18th Street Park of your proposal over here, I see 3 garages, okay, which are more or less, okay, hidden, by coming landscaping. But there's 2 houses in that big houses at the corner. There's another garage in the middle house. And, meanwhile, you're talking about, walking traffic going over to the store back and forth. And you have, parking garages right in front of them. Now, I remember raising the question last time, is it possible to consider that at least some of those garages should be coming from behind, just the way you have it in Armory Park del Sol? But, I don't see it in this particular version of the project.
I'm glad you brought that up, Maurice. In my previous infill subdivisions, whether it's Park Modern at Blackledge and Park or Camino Modern on the east side, we did rear loaded garages because I love the function of where I live so much. But this site presents very, very different constraints. And we did site maps where we had parking and roads on site, and the livability wasn't a positive. It really was a massive, massive negative versus opening up these homes to the street level. But with great design and architecture, we did some revisions here. And Scott, I think you could go into more detail of how we tried to minimize the impact of the garage doors and the garage doors facing the street elevation, while taking into context that we are in a car-driven community. And how do we balance that, the FLD requirements, and the let alone requirements of inhabitants of these structures in Tucson of, where do they park their cars and minimize that impact overall. So Scott, could you go into a little bit more? Of
Yeah,
what we
and I
did?
think I don't know how long that street frontage is along 18th Street. What is it, Jim? Do you know? It's like 180 feet or so. It's a really long expanse, and we would have three cuts there for 3 individual garages, which I think breaks the scale down a little bit. But I think I agree that the pedestrian experience is really important there. And I think that's why we're devoting a lot of energy to create this garden-like landscape there. And I think the three cuts in that 1 block length, if you look at sort of, that's not a lot, that seems, it's a balance between, we need to provide a place for cars, to putting a driveway, like basically a road through the site. There's wouldn't be anything left if we had to bring in cars from behind there.
Well, if you go a little bit, further west of 18th Street, you're going to see a project that came to completion a couple of years ago. I think they built 4 luxury bungalows. Okay, and the parking's in the back.
No, they park there. 2 of those are in front. 2 of the 4 are in front, and another one pulls. I believe 3 of them actually park in front.
And
They've
Maurice,
got the
really
2
glad,
middle ones. They've got side-by-side parking in front.
I'm glad you brought up that project. I looked at it very, very closely and followed it closely even before I was able to acquire this piece of property. And they had real challenges in terms of selling it to the end user. And one of those challenges was the lack of garage parking and accessible parking. So we really wanted to address that with our project because of the challenges. That one just to the west of us down 18th Street on the south side of the road, the Rob Paulus project, for everyone's recollection.
Yeah, the last time I walked by that project, there were cars parked in front of the houses, basically in the front yard. So we're trying to avoid that. And we definitely looked closely at 18th Street. And again, after the last meeting, because of Maurice's comments. And this contributor to the west of us has a garage that faces 18th. The contributor to the right of us has a garage that faces 18th. And even this must be your property, Maurice. I mean, this is a utility shed, corrugated steel that has the feel of a garage.
I just want to interject here. At the courtesy review, we established that this project would be able to use parking access off of a minor avenue, Herbert, and 18th Street, because it was the standard in the neighborhood that streets, not avenues, and minor avenues are the places for parking. Modern concerns address this. If they are going to provide garages on space, they are ideally located. And the LAR from our previous courtesy review spells this out. I think we should move on.
That sounds fine. Are there other comments or questions from advisory board members?
So this is Helen. I just want to compliment you on your care and concern for the historic sidewalk and curb. And if we need to put in our motion some kind of support for that, I would be happy to include that.
Yeah, I think that'll definitely help us address some of the comments we've gotten from the FLD review. Was the sidewalks are need to be replaced with wider sidewalks, and you need to put a curb all the way around your project. And but
Jim, I want to throw out the guidance for historic sidewalks is if there are stampings, CCC stampings, 1938 WPA stamps, that they need to be saved in situ and cut out of the existing sidewalk and then retained in any new pour around them.
Yeah.
So if you have to replace them for this project, that's perfectly acceptable. And moving up to the 5-foot standard from the standard width of 4 feet through most of Armory Park is fine, as long as you keep all of the actual notations in curbs and sidewalks and preserve those inside.
However, I prefer that they not be removed and replaced. And I think that the effort to do that is commendable.
I concur with you completely, Helen. I love walking down the sidewalks, pushing the stroller, holding my kid's hand and telling him the story and not just cutting out a piece of it. So thank you for bringing that up. I agree completely.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing. Okay, if I may. Okay. Since you had the last presentation, okay, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Is that you, John? Okay, one more time. Okay, since your last presentation, there's been a lot of changes okay, in real estate values in Armory Park. Okay, there's a lot of houses that passed the $1 million mark. Okay, as far as resale, which did not exist before. Now, if you take that into consideration, and I know you're in real estate, I'm in real estate too. Okay, I have a number of properties in Armory Park. I have some properties on the east side as well, suburban ranches. I'm very familiar with the area. Okay, and I'm just giving you my 2 cents over here. But sometimes it makes more sense to have five houses at $750,000 a piece. Okay, rather than 6 houses at $300,000. Okay, and one at maybe $900 to $1 million. Okay, if you think about that, then I'm sure you can find a way to incorporate the kind of neighborhood that you like. You just said yourself. Okay.
Maurice, could you clarify for me? Are you saying you'd like us to have fewer homes that are less affordable?
Make it 2-story houses. Okay, this is not going to be affordable housing. Okay, nobody these days, okay, wants to go.
I agree with you. This is a premium product in a very special neighborhood.
Exactly. Okay, so if you look around, you're going to see this. There's 2-story houses. There's Victorian, Victorian era houses. Okay, those bungalows we were talking down the block. Even though they had a hard beginning to sell, they went up for a pretty penny. And I'm sure if we look at their values now, okay, they went through the roof. Okay, so do you want to build, 6, mid-level houses? Okay, or 5 houses, premium houses, beautiful, architecture, just like the ones that you live in Armory Park. Okay, I know the developer of Armory Park. Okay, Armory Park del Sol. I've known him for a very long time. Okay, and he's a very successful fellow. Okay, he could have built, especially in those days, much cheaper houses than what he did, but he had a specific goal in mind. He wanted for a professional neighborhood to come up in an area that used to be just a dirt lot, and he succeeded. Okay, you have a dirt lot that you can play with. Okay, you know what's good. Okay, money is no longer the matter. Okay, people that buy into Armory Park these days don't really care how much money they're going to pay as long as they get value for it. Okay.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that feedback. We'll definitely take it into consideration, because when we do a market analysis, we want to create quality product that's attainable.
Exactly. I own some properties a few properties on Arizona Avenue. Okay. And about 6 months ago, a house went up on the market. It was a horrible house. Okay, the folks paid $250,000 for it. They put $100,000 into it, and they sold it for $750,000.
We put a lot of thought in limiting the product to a mostly single story, and only the home on the corner of 4th and 18th having a second level, which is pretty much concealed. And I'm sorry, maybe the architects can tell you the term so that it doesn't actually feel like a 2-story home. We wanted to be very, very sensitive to that. So you didn't see 6 or 12 or even more, according to the zoning, two-story homes just crammed in there. We tried to do the opposite of that.
And part of the reason we have the houses we have in this proposal is for historic compatibility, having the smaller houses along Herbert, having the larger house along 4th Avenue. This is a considered plan to try to enhance the historic compatibility, as opposed to putting a bunch of identical 2-story houses on this lot. Hopefully you can appreciate that what we're trying to do with that.
It's very commendable, but if you look at my property across the street at 222 East 18th Street, okay, this is not a low roof property. This is an actual Victorian houses. If you look at those 4 bungalows down the street, those are 2-story houses. There's nothing wrong with building 2-story properties if you do right. And if you do that, you could maximize the land that you're building on. You know, I mean, I'm used to 3.5 acre properties, so I know what land is. Okay.
Maurice, you've made a great case for reducing the density on the site, but we need to get around to other board members.
Yes.
Helen, I think you had some more comments.
No, actually, I think this is overall a very good design. I like the treatment of the 18th Street. I think that's very good. My only question would be the identical character of the units that you have on, which street is it?
Herbert Avenue.
Herbert. Yeah, I wonder if some variation would be, you know, possible without messing up your floor plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually two pair because of the way we have to deal with the water. And you know, across the street from that are some triplexes. So to some extent, we thought that having some amount of conformity along Herbert made some sense.
And they're relatively small. I mean, it's a relatively small scale. We looked at breaking up the volumes a little bit and it didn't look right. It just started looking fussy. I think with color, some variations in color that, you know, sort of the 4 small facades will be really nice. And then you will have the, as Matt mentioned, the concrete block pavers, the planters in front. The awnings will be a mix of like opaque and open, so we'll have shadows on the stucco walls there. So I think it's, you know, it's a fairly brief experience, the 4 facades there, but I think it'll be a rich one. And we didn't, you know, we did look at like, you know, trying to you know, do it in a more varied sort of way, but I think this seemed to be the best.
Yeah, and I think over time, you know, each will evolve in its own direction. The 3 duplexes across 4th Avenue were built on what appears to be identical plans. And, you know, over the years, and some of that is the landscaping also, they feel a little bit different from each other. So, yeah, I appreciate the comment, but you know, given the constraints we're working with.
And Helen, I know, actually, I think you years ago, you reviewed our project on 18th Street in Maine in the barrio, where we have 2 houses that like sort of look identical in a schematic drawing, but when you drive by them today, I don't think they look identical at all. And there's quite a bit of variety there in that sequence of houses.
Okay,
Was there any thought to maybe making them kind of like townhouse where it's like they have shared walls?
Yeah, we definitely looked at that. Go ahead, Scott, sorry.
Yeah, no, we looked at it, but with the 3-foot space between, I mean, it's difficult to do a long, slender house and be able to provide egress from a bedroom in back. You only have, if you connect them, you only have egress through the front. So that becomes difficult. And this way, with 3 feet between, we could have a few windows between that. So we'd have a window on one house that would face a blank wall on the other house, so that you'd maintain privacy. So it's for egress and to bring some more light in. They've also, a couple of them, we've got internal courtyards, so the connectors would connect with the internal courtyards.
Sarah, I'm really glad you brought this up. I didn't want a project that you went by in 2 years or 3 years or 10 years or 50 years, and it always stood out. We wanted to approach this and design it. Of course, it's going to be new, modern construction, but something that feels like it's part of the neighborhood. And to do that, we looked at the elevations from 4th, from 18th, and from Herbert, and wanted to make sure they were vastly different. And so looking at this page, the one that probably stands out to the most is the conformity along Herbert, whereas the elevation on 4th, to me, looks very much more like a traditional Armory Park home as you bike or ride along 4th Avenue. Then you go around 18th and you have incredible variation. To Maurice and John's point, 18th is going to be a thoroughfare for Armory Park, where you really feel the richness and the variation. And then when you go into, you know, what we traditionally call an alley, but it's really an avenue, Herbert, we have this more uniform nature, which mirrors the other duplexes and triplexes as you go north from 18th up to 17th, to feel that density, but that mirror across the street.
Yeah, I think how you've addressed the streetscape from each side has been really thoughtful of the surrounding area. That comment for like maybe making a duplex or whatever was just for the Herbert. So I appreciate the explanation of your considerations.
Awesome.
We
And
did.
to pair that together, the first design of the landscape plan, Matt might roll his eyes at me. It was very geometric. Sorry, I thought I lost you for a second. And so we went back and really asked the team to look at that form again. We didn't want the landscape to stick out and look like this brand new modern geometric layout. And so I asked the team to revisit that and make it feel like this has been part of Armory Park all along, with, of course, a rich package so that it feels lived in and it feels welcoming, but very accessible, because we all know there's parts of Armory Park and going down sidewalks, it's hard for me to push a stroller. And I want to make sure that this is accessible for people in wheelchairs and strollers and of all walks of life to get up and down, but to really feel like it's part of the neighborhood as a whole.
Okay, Tom, comments?
Yeah, looks pretty good to me. I appreciate the mix of things, and I share some of Helen's thoughts about the sameness of the places on Herbert. But you know, Herbert is an avenue that has a lot of sameness in apartments together and in sort of row homes. I appreciate the presentation. I especially appreciate you taking the things that you had changed since the courtesy review and outlining them for us. That was really helpful. And
There were some good suggestions. So it
applaud you
worked
for doing
both
that.
ways. Yeah.
And I think we basically thought it was pretty good at the courtesy review. Everybody would love for you to build 3 houses instead of 6, but I'm not going to harp on that.
We get that. Yeah.
It's close and it fills up the lot, but that's sort of the nature of Armory Park in a lot of places. So I'm not going to quibble about that. I agree with Helen that in making our recommendation, if we support it, that we strongly recommend that we support your preference for no curb and sidewalk on Herbert Avenue, and for preserving where feasible the historic curb along 18th Street and 4th Avenue. Have you looked at your driveway aprons to see if you got any WPA stamps there?
I think we don't. I think we're okay, but
Okay.
I can't guarantee it right now. Yeah. If we did have to remove one for that, or for getting water across, we're gonna have to cut and then put in some steel 6x6 steel pipes to let the water through. Hopefully we can locate that so we don't lose any of the stamps.
Okay.
And
well,
we're minimizing the disturbance because we'll put the tubes right next to the driveways so that they'll only come across in 3 places.
And the sidewalk, the closer you get to 4th Ave, the more disturbed the sidewalk already is, because they put in it's not, I don't have the resolution on this image, but there's already an ADA compliant ramp here at 4th and 18th. So some of that sidewalk has already been replaced.
Okay, I'm not terribly concerned about the lack of a north elevation on here. I know we usually have one, but the windows are going to look at a wall, right?
They will. Well, with the exception so the windows on the northernmost Herbert Avenue house, the
Yes.
headlight on those windows will be 6'8", and we've got a 6-foot fence there. So there's no view through. There would be on the house one at the corner of 4th Avenue and 18th Street. There's the possibility of having a windows or balcony at the second floor level under that dormer.
Yeah, but it won't be looking into the backyard of the existing house. It may
It would be looking into their own backyard there.
Yeah, mostly looking into this backyard.
Mhm. Okay, well, in that sense, I agree with John. It would have been nice to see a north elevation to have that,
Sure.
sort of sketched out. But
Pat, next.
I'd just like to say for the record, it's evident there's been a great deal of time and trouble taken with trying to come up with a design that meets the requirements and
You muted yourself.
thank you. You said something about the landscaping gravel. You mentioned something about a red. Can you give me an idea of what that stuff actually looks like?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's going to
Matt.
be
Yeah, go ahead.
pretty well what's shown in the picture. It's going to be that smaller size 3/8. We could even go 3/8 minus. That almost looks like just dirt. As I mentioned, there's lots of options we can do. We want to match the architecture, so it may not be red, but right now we felt that red matched most of the downtown palette.
Okay. I mean, that was the only thing that stood out.
Yeah, Mr. O'Brien, I think I'm with you. If you look at the California riprap just to the right of it, I generally like to not see a huge contrast between the gravel and the riprap and have a more natural looking tan or brown. But like Matt said, the actual gravel type hasn't been finalized yet. And as you know, it's a natural product, so there's always variation in it.
Okay. That's
Robin,
great.
any
Well,
comments?
no, I don't have anything else. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat.
you.
Robin, anything?
Yeah, just dovetailing on the landscaping on 18th and 4th, it's all along, it's public right of way. I'm wondering who you envision will maintain this beautiful landscaping you're putting in.
Go ahead, Matt. I mean, one thing we do know is that the 18th is being developed as a bikeway, and so we expect there will be changes. We've been told that all those changes are in on the pavement side of the current curb, and I think it's the homeowner's responsibility to maintain, the curb, the sidewalk, and the landscaping between the house and the curb. But Matt, you have any insight into that?
It's something we need to work with the city a little bit more on. Typically, the city will give us 5 feet of the right of way, but in this case, we're asking for all of the right of way.
That
So
was just on the front end, just thinking about that before would be, I think, advisable.
No, it's
Yeah,
a really good point. And
I mean,
Rob,
yeah,
when developments stop behind the back of the sidewalk curb, it's always sort of annoying to me. It doesn't feel like they've completed the project. So we wanted to holistically do this and anticipating that the homeowners would want to beautify that and would want to be responsible for maintaining it, while there is no HOA here like there is in Armory Park del Sol.
Exactly. And I presume in your iterations, you didn't pop the tops on Herbert because one of the considerations would be light across the way. I'm making that assumption.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. What was that, Robin?
But what I was saying is I'm presuming why you didn't pop the tops on the 4 on Herbert was a light issue across the way as well, not just the massing and structural consideration. I think it's a great project. That was my concern on the landscaping. That's all.
Great, thanks.
thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks all of you for the feedback and the comments.
Now it's my turn.
Yeah, go John.
In a prior review, and I see them here on this location, you've got at least 3 exterior staircases up to a supposed roof deck, but they are not shown in the elevations you provide. How visible are they? What type of staircases? Because we're supposed to comment on exterior staircases that are visible from the street.
Yeah, Scott and I noticed that today. They're showing up in the landscape drawing that I've got on the screen now. The building one, I don't think we're going to have it. We had this here when we were imagining the possibility for a flat roof on the ADU as a possible roof deck. I think that one is unlikely, and it wouldn't, in no case would it be visible from the public right of way. The one on what we call house 2, lot 2, also not visible from the public right of way, but that would be going up to a roof deck that would be facing 18th. And this one we are missing in our elevations. And it's a roof deck that would be on this southeast corner of the building. And, you know, we're imagining a spiral stair that would sort of maybe in a very tiny way echo the form of the water tower that was on this site, actually fairly close to that location. But yeah, we are missing that in the elevation.
Yeah, so the current iteration, we're thinking 2 roof decks, the southernmost Herbert Avenue house, that mid-block 18th Street house, and they would both be along 18th Street. So they'd be looking into a public way rather than over their neighbors.
And this is going to go back to it. You know, I see the front elevations. Everything looks good. I assume there will be integrity to each building. But the 4 on Herbert, I have no idea what the windows are going to be like. There's no floor plans. I don't know where they're going to be placed. I don't know what the north elevation of the northernmost property is respective. You've described it, just a second. You've described it as 3 windows, but we can't see that. We don't know what your doors are going to be for your outside access. And we have never approved an FLD that does not show all 4 elevations of a building. So for the review of the actual buildings for approval, we should have more information to approve the buildings. That said, as an FLD project and your siting and compatibility and suggested setbacks, you've made a clear case, and I think we could rule on that so that the FLD process could go ahead concurrently. But the full review of each building has been compatible with a door and window schedule and the other information on each face is probably material that we should have. We have never approved an FLD where we have not had all 4 elevations if it is our only review of a property. We are reviewing 6 new buildings in this district, and we only see 1 or 2 in one case facades. We don't know how it will look from driving or walking south on South 4th Avenue from the streetscape. We don't have that elevation.
Scott, how visible do you think the backs of the Herbert homes are going to be from anywhere but their own backyards?
Yeah, I don't think, you know, as a practical matter, I don't think the windows and doors the head heights are 6'8". We've shown a 6 or 7 foot fence. So they're not visible. I think we've shown all the openings that are visible, with the exception, if you're on 4th Avenue, you could potentially see an opening at the balcony level of that corner house. Maybe I misunderstood, but we've never, I didn't realize that we were required, I didn't realize it was a submission requirement to provide elevations that were not visible from the street.
In the historic district, we're supposed to review all elevations of each new proposed structure for compliance with a door and window schedule for each. So as of right now, I do not have enough information to even entertain a motion to approve the buildings per se as our single review.
John,
I
I
think-
understand your hesitancy in this, and at the
I think we can make recommendations on the HPZ, your siting, your setbacks and that sort of stuff, so that that can continue as a separate review. But for the individual buildings, we do not have enough information. We have never approved a new house where we only see the front facade and nothing else, ever.
Yeah, I mean,
John,
I
if
think,
I may.
John, the missing elevations that are visible from the public right away are right here. It's not going to give me a very strong line, and right here. And in both cases, there's a 6-foot wall, 6-foot fence, metal fence, as shown in the other elevations. So you might see 8 inches of window on this wall or on this wall, but you've got the public facades. You've got most of it, and you've got the buildings that have 2 public facades. You've got them in the elevations. I don't know, maybe Jody could weigh in on this, but we like you guys, but would rather not have to come back for another review if that was an option.
Jody, can you weigh in on this, please?
I don't know if she's still with us, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here. I host the meeting, so I have to still be here.
Thanks, Jody.
I would say, one consideration that Armory Park might want to think about is hosting a special meeting that would allow you time to provide those elevations quickly, that they could have a special meeting for it. PRS isn't going to be until the 9th of March is the first opportunity that you would have to get onto the PRS agenda. So, I mean, there's still, in theory, like 2 weeks prior to that. So they could, you could do it, they could potentially have a special meeting for it. And you could come back for that.
Yeah.
I think it would be in everybody's interest if we continue this case, so that we can see those if it is indeed going to be our only review of this project. And this is speaking from experience. There have been some projects where applicants have said, "Oh, you don't see this from the street," and then they do interior courtyards that have sliding doors, and it's found afterwards, but because the topic never was brought up and it wasn't visible and they were not fully developed dimension plans, that there's been public outcry about some of these things. And in the HPZ, every elevation does need to be reviewed to make sure that the exterior of each building is moved forward. So I'm perfectly available for a special meeting to look at the details and elevations of this stuff moving forward.
We're not at the point, we don't have that information yet. I mean, the designs are not resolved to the point that we can show you detailed elevations on all the other sides.
Jody, is it possible that we could make a recommendation to approve the site plan of the FLD and the street elevations? But all of those buildings will have to come back for full review?
No, that's not typically how it works. I mean, it's going through the process right now. They're going to be looking for the historic approval, and it's not something that's separated out like that.
I mean, the FLD that's at 811 South 4th, every elevation was on there as well as the site plan. Maybe refer to that as a guidepost. I'm just prove that.
The group helped me in our courtesy review we did a few months back. I don't remember this specific point being so critical now to you all, being raised in the comments of needing to see the rear of the structures that are not seen from the street level.
We did not bring that up because it was a courtesy review of you showing how you envisioned the project, how you anticipated looking from the street faces and the other things.
So to put it in a bigger context.
We assumed that city staff would have required your development package for historic review to provide the mandatory review
Sure.
requirements for our review, and they're not there.
We haven't designed basically to CDs or construction documents, because without getting the FLD approved, it would be an immense waste of time and money to design homes on lots we don't have approved. And that's the chicken before the egg conundrum here that I believe Scott brought up. And so we're trying to balance the two of those at the same time with the current design review process.
And Jody, I don't think we've done this before where we've had to provide elevations that are not visible from the street. I thought the historic review was limited to what was visible from the street.
I think you're referring to when SHPO reviews projects for the property tax reduction, they frequently note that their primary concern is the street elevation.
Yeah, and when I've reviewed projects on plans review, it's always been what's visible from the public right of way. I mean, there's facades in here that, you know, will only be seen by property owner. And you know, if we had them, I would bring them up right now, but we don't have them, and we really won't be developing them until we get much deeper into this project. The two that I've highlighted here in red, you know, which are basically fences, we could provide if you want to have a special meeting and talk about those two facades, but the others, you know, we don't have, and you know, we're not planning to develop those before the FLD approval.
In terms of project development, we need to define the lots before we can build the houses. So if we designed the houses before we knew we had these 6 new lots designed, it would be a pretty poor process and risk on our part to do so.
You have met all the submittal requirements for FLD review.
We were told we met all the submittal requirements for historic as well, John, so.
I believe that's true.
I have a difference of opinion.
Yeah,
but I very
that's
much
what we're worried
understand, Scott and Jim, I very much understand why John would like to see that level of detail.
Sure.
And I'm more than happy as the project progresses to commit to holding an additional courtesy meeting as we have these plans, and to invite people to those meetings and have their feedback, because I want you all to continue to be part of this process. I don't feel like this is a one and done meeting. It's very hard in any context to feel like you have enough right here on the spot to make a determination as things inevitably change. But I very much do feel like we have met the requirements and hope we have your blessings to proceed forward.
Again, conceptually, I don't have any problem, but there's not enough information for us to technically sign off saying, yeah, this is fine, go ahead and build it, don't ever see us again. Because we don't know, we cannot see it.
I
Yeah,
guess
but we
I'm a
need to-
little confused. Why wouldn't this project come back to us after the lots have been approved?
That's a good question. I don't know how the process
Technically,
works.
the FLD runs concurrently, and a new subdivision plat is not approved until building permits are issued. So it's going to be a long-running process where mayor and council approve a final plat after all full review by the planning department and any advisory boards moves forward.
Actually,
It's-
John, I don't think that, so if we didn't need historic approval to not put in the curbs and the sidewalks and you know, save the sidewalks and maybe setbacks as well. The three things we're here specifically asking for. I mean, this FLD the lots could have been divided. It's just that the FLD rules are in conflict with HPZ. So we're here at this point in the process. I know from plans review, we saw lots of projects that were FLDs that never came through historic review before the final plat was approved. And so those projects, we reviewed the buildings that were proposed, being told that the FLD was a done deal, you know, because it had already been approved. So this case is somewhat unique because we're trying to preserve the historic fabric, and the FLD process won't let us do that without a recommendation from the historic review. That's how I'm understanding it.
Okay, this is Helen. I have a question about how we could possibly negotiate here. John, this would be up to you. What would be the restrictions that would want to put on that north facade? You know, if we are able to formulate those, perhaps this would cut the Gordian knot, so to speak, and let them move forward, but also protect the historic integrity.
It's a tough call. I'm assuming that they are going with the windows as described, without any dimensions on the elevations that are shown. And I don't have personally any problem with the FLD package, the siding, the new lots, theoretically the setbacks, because the FLD is supposed to be used for more dense development. They are allowed in HPZs, but that is concurrent with final approval of each building, meeting the review requirements. And unfortunately, the code says most restrictive prevails. And in an HPZ, a full review of each building is standard practice and always has been used for all FLD projects in our HPZ. I cannot speak for any others over the last 5 years.
So,
Jody?
so Helen, to kind of tag team with you. I'm not saying I think it's the best option, but recently West University had a project where they had a number of concerns about some of the windows and doors that were being proposed. They approved the project with a number of conditions. Those conditions involved basically the applicant providing drawings that were sent to staff sent them to the board, and then the board kind of reviewed them offline. And then they had a concurrence. The concurrence was sent back to staff, and then staff could say, okay, yes, this is incorporated, and made sure that it was incorporated into future plans. Because technically, you don't review lot splits. Historic doesn't review lot splits. This is your review of the project. So I don't know if you're comfortable with doing something similar where you maybe take a pass at like what you find to be acceptable on the elevations that you don't see, or more to the point, what you would find not acceptable, like no sliding glass doors or anything like that, and windows that are similar proportion to the front facade or something along those lines. And then they can develop those as they move through the process and it comes
Joey,
back to you.
Thank you for bringing that up. I think that would be extremely helpful to have that advice and that input from you as we get to that part of the project, because like Scott and Jim said, we haven't gotten to that level of detail until we know what our lot design is. So please give us that feedback.
Michael, can
add
you,
that.
Michael, I'm kind of putting this out to the board for them to kind of ponder it. Just kind of letting them, sorry to interrupt you, but letting them ponder it, whether or not it would be appropriate, because they really have to be the ones that are comfortable with something like that. And it's not an ideal situation for staff either. But it has happened in the past, and it would be really up to the board with whether or not they're comfortable with something like that. But do you understand, John and everybody, what I'm trying to explain? Probably not very well.
I do, theoretically, and as I said, conceptually, I don't have a problem with any of the above has presented, but I don't have enough details. I don't know if the windows, it says they're double hung, but some of them are obviously going to be fixed, especially along those interior courtyards and so on and so forth. I just want to see full plans to approve the actual buildings. Conceptually, I don't have a problem with the siding or the setbacks proposed for the FLD process, but I don't think we have enough information to do the full review of each building at this stage. I'm sorry, that's a problem. I also don't think it's appropriate that we do offline comments and not conduct our business at a open public meeting, because that leads to discussions of this is a fixed thing that's being done online and without any public input. And I don't want to establish that policy for this board. I think we
Okay,
should do
I
all
was
of
just
that
putting it out there. John, I would suggest then that you might just want to consider doing a continuation, because I don't think that you're going to come to a mutually agreeable decision at this juncture.
Is
Well,
it
would you
possible
consider
to
deciding
have-
on what you can see here on the FLD and the facades that you can see, and then we come back with the elevations that are not shown on this round?
I would suggest that you continue it, that the board consider a special meeting and that you come back with the other elevations.
Well,
Yes,
the case that you described, Jody, ended with having kind of private comments, but could we just do the same thing, but then have it be another meeting? So that way it's public.
right.
Basically, I think
Because
what
I-
Sarah's saying is,
The real question there, I think, is what conditions we can impose with approval. In other words, if the condition for approval is that we see and approve the north elevation, is that a possible way to deal with this problem?
I think if we're going to entertain a special meeting, and I'm perfectly open to it, I don't know what the availability is, we can, I would like to see a motion that we generally find the project is compatible, including setback, siding, site utilization, and that sort of thing, but there is not enough information for details to be approved at this time, and it needs to come back. So I recommend that somebody makes a motion to continue this case, and we will make every effort to do it as quickly as possible.
I would bring in the motion. I would bring in the motion for continuation until the documentation necessary to actually make a decision is considered sufficient.
I do have a question, though. Would this information, when will this information be available? In other words,
We haven't, because we don't have approval for.
I'm sorry, John, point of order. Do we have a second to Helen's motion? Is this under discussion now?
I don't, is there a second to Maurice's motion for discussion purposes?
I didn't actually hear all of it.
Okay, my motion was for a continuation until we get more information necessary to make a decision.
Do I hear a second? Helen, anyone?
Well, I will second it so that we can discuss it.
Great. We have a second. Board discussion. Helen, go ahead.
Well, my question to the people who are presenting the project, will that information be available in the near future, or is this something that's going to be at, some point, some months off? And
Thank you, Helen. I'd love to
depends
jump
on
in
the-
and provide some more comment and context here, if I may, at this time. So in every FLD project I've done, it hasn't been in a historic zone. So I will be the first to tell you that, and there are new nuances, and that's the best part of this business and living in this neighborhood is you're learning as you go. With that said, the subdivision gets approved, then we have to go in for individual building floor plan and approvals. And Scott, if you would jump in on that note, right now we are going through the FLD process, which requires us to go through the historic preservation zone review, which is why we don't have floor plans or specific elevations or treatments, because we are many, many, many months away from that until we have an approved plat. Once we have an approved plat, we will create floor plans. And Scott, would you jump in there?
Yeah, we have conceptual floor plans that we've developed to the extent that we could develop these street elevations. And I think we're very comfortable proceeding with that. And I don't think there wouldn't be significant variance between what we've shown here and our CDs in terms of the street elevations. But there's still a tremendous amount of resolution to do on the interior floor plans before we could provide exact placement of windows on the secondary elevations and exact sizes. I mean, we're showing, fiberglass double hung windows. There are some single light windows, which would be awning or casement or fixed. I'm not sure. I mean, that's not called out. We've called out the wooden plank door, the entry doors, the wooden plank garage doors. So I think our palette of materials there is there. Our street elevations are there. But in terms of we basically need to be sort of at, almost at CDs to show exactly where the window openings and sizes are on the secondary elevation.
Well, Scott and Michael, I think a lot depends on what Maurice meant and what the motion means by more information. If they're just asking for the two sort of public right-of-way elevations that are highlighted in red on the screen right now, those are not hard. I mean, this is a garage. There's, no windows.
I believe John asked for everything, and
well,
there
John
will
did,
be
but the
more
motion,
continuations until they know what the rear of the homes and
right,
basically the four sides are.
But if the motion was, we want these two elevations, the north elevation as seen from the Herbert right of way and the north elevation as seen from the Fourth Ave right of way, that's something we could probably pull together in a couple of weeks for the next, special meeting. If it's all four elevations of all six buildings, that's what we can't do. I mean, it creates a bottleneck in the process where one part of the process requires an incredible amount of detail, and another part of the process, the FLD, we need to get that approved within some time
Scott,
period
have
of
you,
our public meeting. So we're getting squeezed.
Scott, have you ever designed actual homes before you knew what the lot was?
Yeah.
No. And in my experience, we have not provided, elevations that are not visible to the street in the historic zone when we've done this before. So I know, John, you and I have a difference of interpretation on that, but I don't understand why it would be relevant, sort of those interior walls on the Herbert Avenue houses that are just not visible.
If
I'm less concerned about, for instance, the door and window placement along the three-foot easements right along the property lines and whether you stagger them or not. I'm not really concerned about the floor plans per se, because that isn't our purview. But you've got courtyards, you have exterior rear lot elevations and other things. So elevations of the north side of the project and elevations that face adjoining lots, we should see at least a rough estimate and then a door and window schedule with the details that show that they are fixed or approximate sizes or a size range. We need to know that you're not putting in clerestory windows, which are prohibited in the HPZ. We need to know that you're using, for instance, single entrance doors at the rear or on the courtyards, or French doors, and a rough idea of what they might look like, and not sliding doors. And so they can be general and they can be suggestive. They don't have to be the final plans that you move forward with for building permit, but we have to have a better understanding of how anyone from the property line at any point looks in and sees this project. And we don't have that.
Well, so am I understanding this on the two northernmost Herbert Avenue houses, those interior courtyards that are not visible at all from the right of way? The Historic Commission has a purview over what sort of doors are in those courtyards?
We have a purview over all wall openings on all facades of every building in the HPZ.
You know, I do.
Per
I do have-
5.8 and 9-02 of the technical standards manual.
But could I just ask another question, which seems stupid to me? Why does this have to be the only review? Jody, why do we have to decide this now when we don't have the information? And won't
It's
get
the way that it's the way that the process is set up. So we don't review lot splits. Lot splits are not something that we've ever reviewed.
Right.
So it's a package together, the lot splits and the houses that go on there. And then it goes forward. So we're just part of that review process. It doesn't come back. There's no trigger for it to come back.
Scott, I have a question. How realistically, if you're doing what John suggested, timeline wise, to just, get us to a bit further along on that northern and interior east facing on the top two northern buildings and then other northern elevation, how long, to get us approximately there would that take?
It wouldn't happen before the March 9th meeting, I don't think. I mean, it's a substantial amount of work.
Understood.
I hate to sort of guess at it.
Understood.
I mean, there are conceptual floor plans, but there's quite a bit of work between going from the conceptual floor plan to actually the placement of the doors and windows and sort of configuring those elevations.
I do have a suggestion. I think you should go, I believe Jody should be able to help you with that, but you should take a look at the normal presentations that we get for review and see, for the past few years, and you'll see what we're talking about. But, John was right. When you presented this review the last time, it was a courtesy review. It was a project, something in the future, which we all expected, to be presented the way that, we are accustomed to. But obviously, this is not what everybody thought. So, I don't want you to feel discouraged, because I think your project has a lot of value. Okay, and I'm personally interested, since I own property across the street from you. Okay, I feel, like I said, that I do have an interest in it. I'm a stakeholder. And my opinion, again, it would be to look at previous presentation from previous developers, Jody, can you help them with that to show them what people usually show us?
I guess I'm still confused, and I think our folks here presenting their project are also confused of they can't move forward with specific plans until they know that they have a lot split. And so I'm still not understanding why this doesn't come back to us after the lot split has been approved. And is there some way that we could artificially do that, since it doesn't sound like it does?
Yeah, but we can't. Okay, that is the process. Okay, once this project is approved by us, it goes to the FTD, which approves it. Okay, and that's it. Okay, there's no second rounds. Okay, which is why everybody needs to be careful. Okay, this is a historic neighborhood. We can make a lot of mistakes. Okay, so let's do it right. So again, like I said, I think there was a big misunderstanding. Like John said, when you came here the last time, this was a project in the future, which was just a project. It was not a presentation. It was not a finished product that we were, to either approve or discuss or put back. It was just, like I said, an idea thrown in the air. This is pretty much the idea that you gave us when you came here the last time. So I know you have a deadline, and I know it's a lot of work. And again, like I said, I don't know if Jody's still here. Maybe she could help as far as, showing you, the kind of details that we're looking for, because you're going to see the old standards. Every one of the developers that have been presenting project ever since I've been on the board, and I've been on the board for a few years, those are standard plans. Okay, there's no preference. There's for or against anybody. Okay, we just go by specific standards, and we try to stick to it, which is why it's making this whole area so special. Now, if you could live with that, I think everybody will profit. You'll be able to go ahead with your project, and we want to help you here. We don't want to stop you, but at the same token, we need to protect the neighborhood. This is important.
Could you provide a north elevation of the project? Technically, there are 5 faces of the project because it's an L-shaped lot. Could you do perimeter line elevations so that we have 5 instead of 3, and a rough suggestion of types of openings and materials and I know you're using vertical boards for your doors, but I don't have any idea what those are actually going to look like in context. You say you're going to use vertical garage doors on 18th Street, but you're going to use horizontal doors on Herbert. Just a little bit more information about that. Maybe
I can show you those doors, John, because the vertical plank is what we used in the project in the borough that we've referenced a few times. And I think we know what a metal garage door looks like. So I could bring up images now if that would help.
We've used the same doors before, both of them.
I guess I'd still like to return to my question that I don't feel like has been answered. Jody, you outlined an instance where they continued it, but allowed the process to move forward and then kind of approved it privately afterwards. Can we do something like that, but instead of privately, it's public at the end?
That would still just be a continuation, though. Ultimately, you would be getting back together again to approve that. So, I mean,
but can we continue in a way that they can move forward, that they're not stuck?
No, it's one project. So, I mean, you can't dissect the project and say, yeah, we can approve this, but we can't approve this. They're not separate projects. They move together as one piece.
But
Jody,
can
that
that be
makes
just
no
a
sense to me
condition
whatsoever.
that we come back and review the elevations that you're asking for later? That you approve sort of the FLD and the street facades that we've shown here, and then we come back for a second, it's contingent on a secondary review for the facades the additional facades that you'd like to see.
That's a continuation. That's
Well,
not
it allow us to move forward with the FLD.
I think he's asking us to approve it and then have to bring it back. And what you're saying is that we approve everything tonight, and there's no second bite of the apple.
There's no trigger for them.
Excuse me, I'm talking.
Sorry,
There's
Tom.
absolutely no sense to me that we can't approve this conditionally and bring it back later for other review. If we approve it and they go through the FLD process and they say, no, you can't build 6 houses, you can only build 5, wouldn't they have to bring that back? It would be an entirely different street facade than what they have now.
You're correct. That would be a total redesign. That would be a redesign that if they choose to do it with 5 houses instead of 6 houses, it would be a redesign. It would have to come back.
So
but
why don't we just say that we approve the project as presented, and that we approve the lot line configurations and the setbacks, but that once they get final drawings, we want to see it again.
That'd be great for us.
There's no
being specific about the language. I mean, you're recommending something to the planning director, I think. So if that is your recommendation, that would help us move forward and get the FLD settled, which would be greatly appreciated.
According to what I understand, it's not an option. Okay, once the FLD decides that it's a go, it is a go. We don't have a say about it. Am I correct, Jody?
There's no trigger. I mean, the FLD is approved. It's approved as a package. This is your development plan. So there's no trigger for it to come back. Other than, I mean, the only thing that would bring it back is if there was some modification to it, and then it would be like a minor review, like you moved a window or you moved a door, then it would be like a minor review that would bring it back, but it wouldn't bring it back to the full review because it's just a slight modification.
Couldn't the secondary elevation be a minor review?
Huh? I'm sorry?
Couldn't the secondary elevations be a minor review?
No, minor reviews are small items, like, you move the door over like a foot, or you put in a new different kind of fence. Minor reviews are minor. They're not like an entire elevation. And that's not a precedence that we're going to start moving towards, where it's an entire elevation that you can do a minor review with. But if you did it sounded like John, and John, I may be putting words in your mouth, but it sounds like John has loosened up a little bit and is looking just to kind of understand, like maybe sketch wise, a little bit of material wise, that you may already have an idea of that you could provide. And then with that in mind, if something had to be relocated because you changed a floor plan, like a window, then you could come back for a minor review for that. Like you didn't put a bathroom in there, so it didn't need a window. So you took a window out of the sketch that you originally presented. That could be a minor review. Do you understand what I'm explaining?
Yeah.
So it could be a continuation.
Have a precedent of presenting things we haven't really thought through and don't reflect what the floor plan would be. So that's a little uncomfortable for us. But maybe for the additional north facade, the north facade and the addition to the east facade, we could consider doing that. I don't know, Scott, do you think we could, do it to a level where we come back with only minor changes later?
Yeah, we do the mid-block 18th Street house, just that floor plan is quite, it's clear what happens at the front of the house. It's not so clear what happens at the back of the house. So that's just like, that's going to be a little bit challenging. I mean, we could, it would be easier to do that than to try to develop all the facades, certainly.
And I mean, I think it would give us a way to move forward because
Yeah.
I would like to get a recommendation out of this so we can move forward.
We're kind of stuck because this process used to go through the zoning administrator. There'd be several people looking at it. Everybody could go look at plans around a room. Now that there are requirements that every meeting is recorded, it's all done in public, and everything is done technologically, it's changed. And the review process is different. Now the CDRC decides if there is code compliance for each of the various subsections for the FLD. But it is my understanding that no FLD for a final plat is ever approved. It can be tentatively approved, but it is not a final approved until each of the buildings and the structures on it are approved through design review if they are in an HPZ. So we don't really have any other option but to continue it for more information. I think this board really likes your project. I think we're going to be very favorable if what you give us at the next meeting is suggestive rather than prescriptive, and give some idea, for instance, like the exterior structures of the staircases, an idea of your concept or how it might enter the fabric of the wall. You don't have to do full architectural scaling plans that are set in stone for us, but we need to know how all of the facades at every facade of your overall project interact with all of the adjacent properties, and we don't have that. So I think we should call the question on continuance.
I wasn't even sure, John, where you were talking there. If you're talking about all four facades of all four buildings or all four facades of the project as a whole.
There are 5 exterior facades of the new property L-shaped configuration that will face the exterior perimeter.
Help me understand that, 'cause I either count 4 or 6, so.
Well, there is a north for the building number 6. There is an east for buildings 5 and 6. There is a north to buildings 1 and 2.
So those are 3 plus the 3 we've provided.
You have provided Herbert, 18th and 4th Avenue.
Okay, if you're asking for those 3 additional facades, I think that is something we
and
can
just
figure
roughly
out.
the types of windows, the doors, and they don't have to be like Genweld 428. We just need to know that they're double hung on this building. There's going to be a soffit reveal. They'll be set back. We're using fiberglass, but they're in a historically appropriate configuration. On
And
the
similar
ones
to
that,
what we've done on the other 3 facades. Or are you looking for something else?
well, for instance, it looks like the ADU is going to come around the north of the building and then enter on the west side of it, but it could have a door in it by the time you're done with it, which would be visible from South 4th Avenue. If we approve it now without some idea of where you think the door is going to be, we should probably have more information on the 1.5 stories and the windows and how they don't look into any adjoining lots, that sort of thing. And how the building next to the building to the north for building 6 will not impact the building to the north with a 3-foot setback, which is reasonable. And you have demonstrated that it is reasonable because of development zone standards. I'm not challenging anything you've done. It's just, it's not a full development package we can approve.
I understand, and I think, but I just, so we've got 3 facades here. You've asked for 3 additional facades, but is it at this level of detail, the screen we've got up here, A1.4, where we're calling out materials, or are you looking for more than this? I mean, if we had the north facade of the 2 sections of the north facade, you would see where the windows are in that dormer, and you would see where the door is to the ADU.
We should know basic things. For instance, you've said the doors are all 6'8", And so we can figure out about what the top is. We don't know the overall sizes of the openings. We don't know fixed awning, clerestory, that sort
But
of
you know
thing.
that for these 3 facades, right? So you're looking for the same information on the additional 3 facades? Or you're looking
Yes,
for something
and
different?
you have total, on these plans, you have the total height of the structure, but there is not a wall height, for instance, on building number 1. There's
Okay.
not
So
an
that's
eave,
wall height.
there's not even a photo of something that would be roughly comparable of an eave detail. There's just, it's kind of loosey-goosey.
Well, there's gutters, so there isn't much of an eave detail for that.
Okay.
The gutters are called out.
I can't tell you what you need to provide. We will, since I'm writing up this last set of LAR and minutes, I will provide a concise thing of everything that we discussed tonight so that you can see our LAR with comments. But this is not far enough for us to say we're not going to see it again. And unfortunately, the rules have changed to where,
John, if I may,
believe it or not,
there is a lot of ambiguity in this. And if you would help our team by giving us concrete things this committee, this group would like to see, that would be beneficial, because what I've just heard, even with these existing elevations, there isn't sufficient enough detail, is what you just elaborated on.
that's true.
And so that comment's new. We just received that even the current plans aren't sufficient.
If you only do total building height, that's not usually the only dimension that we typically review for.
So for everyone, it would be very, very beneficial to have a clear set of goals and understanding and what this group wants from us versus taking a stab and taking a stab and taking a stab, so that we can deliver a package to save you folks time to review and say whether or not it's sufficient or not.
Yeah.
To make it simple, okay, what we're looking at is a billboard. What we want to look at is something in 3 dimensions. Simple.
Is that's, we're
The
more
other
than
thing
2
we-
hours into this review, and now we're getting new requests.
Yeah,
And
I've
that's-
got to
We
be,
asked for a set of construction documents, and that's
Yeah.
really not appropriate at this level.
I will be very specific when I write up the minutes LAR of this meeting. I'm happy to circulate that for comments among the board, if that's okay with Jody, so that when we send the draft to Jody to review and make sure we've done things, you do have a pretty clear understanding of what we're looking for. But I do not believe that we have enough to feel comfortable just letting this move on and out of our hands.
Jody, how do we supply a package that isn't going to exist for quite some time now? And if we do supply that package, it's at great risk,
Yeah.
because
yeah, that's
these
the
lots
thing.
might never get approved by mayor and council, and we've designed 6 homes in 3 dimensions for lots that don't exist.
And then we come back to a board with slightly different membership that doesn't.
A year or
has
2
different
years from now, I mean,
opinion.
I don't think any business person would make that type of investment. And I'm sorry, I got to be very frank and honest with this group that making a 6-figure investment to get that level of drawings at this point in the process is not feasible. It's not smart.
I would say that at this point, John has expressed what he is looking for. That would be spelled out in the minutes. The minutes are the record. So that, and to be clear, has not asked for construction drawings, is asking for particular elevations, has asked for them to be, from what I'm hearing, more in a sketch format, not in a hard and fast format, but also because that is reflected in the record, should there be delay coming back to this board for some reason, it is clear in that record what they want. So even if membership has changed, they should be adhering to what is in that record and not asking for new items at that point. But at this point, there's still a motion on the table to continue. So you still have that option to provide that information on the three, I think it was 3 facades. And do a special meeting or come back for their next meeting. PRS is, you're looking at the 9th or the 23rd. So even if you're March 23rd, you still have time that you could do a special meeting, provide a sketch with some particulars on it, and come back on the 3 facades that they're talking about, which are not construction drawings.
I just don't feel confident or comfortable that we can scramble in the next couple of weeks and hope to have sufficient enough information, because my inclination is telling me that there's going to be more wanted. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I would want full 3 dimensionals too, ideally, but the process that's prescribed by the city doesn't allow that for us to happen, and it's not feasible.
I think then you would be looking for, if you are providing what's noted in the minutes and what they have now told you they're looking for, that, you know, that should be what they're looking for. That at that point, you guys shouldn't be asking for more information unless there's something deliberately left off of their list that they were asking for.
And were these documents not reviewed beforehand to meet the minimum standards? And this continuation could continue?
They're not presented. I mean, this is your opportunity to present to the advisory board. This is the process. And continuations happen. Continuations happen all the time. It's not always a one and done, to be clear.
Right, but we came for a
Totally
courtesy
aware of
review,
that.
and we were not, you know, we didn't get the impression that a lot of additional information would be required. We've submitted this in January, and it's, you know, now we're looking at late March before we'll get our meeting. There's some guarantee of a timely review of this, isn't there?
There is a timely review. They are offering to do, I mean, they have to check quorum. They're offering to do a special meeting too. So part of that is on you. I mean, they're willing to do a special meeting. They've laid out what additional information they're looking for.
Right. We did a courtesy review with the advisory board. We did a courtesy review with the plans review subcommittee, didn't we?
Yeah.
Jody, we thought we submitted this to you. We thought that the package was complete. So we're really kind of blindsided by the additional requirements.
Right.
I mean, we've been at it for a year. We thought we responded in detail and conscientiously to the concerns that came up first time around. We would exercise the same care in the other elevations. We'd use the same palette of materials. We'd be glad to come back for an additional review on that. It just seems, it seems pretty arbitrary.
Yeah, the Armory Park Board doesn't realize this. This is the third, we were asked twice to submit additional materials. And so between January 5th when we submitted this, there were 2 very quick, fire drill turnarounds to get the additional materials in this package. And now we're surprised by this request, which is really hard to satisfy. Yeah, that's just where we are.
If you listen to the motion that I asked for before, I was very loose about it. I just asked for information sufficient to make a decision. Okay, I didn't ask for architect plans, okay, or anything like this. Now, I understand that, you are in some kind of catch-22 situation. I realize that. And again, I'm looking forward to have something built across the street from my property, so don't think I'm not on your side. Okay, there's no favoritism. However, okay, I like the idea of not looking at a dirt lot across the street. So I am 100% for it. But if you were to buy a car and the salesman would tell you, well, you could look at the front of the car, but you can look at the back, and it's all sales are final. What would you say? You would think I'm crazy. So again, like I said, we're not asking for a ready-to-build plan. Okay, but at this point in time, you should have a fairly good idea what it is you want to build on those lots. So, with that being, like I said, construction, we're willing at this point in time to do a continuation and set up, and that's up to John, the president, a special dates where we'll meet again, okay, so that you could go to your March 9 meeting, whatever you need to do to get it going. But, we need to be positive about it, all of us. And like I say, you cannot put us in a situation that puts us in jeopardy. Okay, we're working with you, we're looking to work with you, but it has to work both ways. And Michael.
Unfortunately, we could go around Robin about all of this and the inequities of it and so on and so forth, but it does not meet the application requirements for us to do a full review at this point. So I'm going to call the question. We have a motion on the floor to continue the case for more information as outlined in this meeting, and that can and will include the LAR that has suggestions that are part of the public record. So shall we do roll call?
Sure.
Okay. Tom?
No.
Sarah?
No.
I'll say yes. Pat?
No.
Maurice?
Yes.
Helen?
No.
Robin?
I vote no.
Okay, motion fails. Somebody needs to come up with a new motion.
I would offer a motion, John, to approve the package as presented, and with particular attention to the need to have no sidewalks or curbs on Herbert Avenue, and to protect the historic curb on 18th and 4th whenever possible. I would also ask that the developers, when they get approval and have their final drawings, adhere to historical standards on all facades of the buildings.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a second motion and a second. Jody, if we put that in, will that allow the project to come back for us to review the elevations, or will it not meet the standards?
There's not really anything there that would trigger it to come back for review. It would be a staff review.
So if we approve this tonight, even though we requested, there's no provision for it to come back for us to look at any other elevations or site improvements or window or door locations on any part of this project, correct?
There's nothing to trigger it. I mean, staff at that point, that's just, those are conditions that would, just like, the door needs to be 4 foot wide, it would be a staff review. That's typically what would happen, the conditions.
So we're at essentially the opposite extreme of approving it and sending it on at this point. Other
Well-
discussion, board members.
Bear in mind, you're also advisory one. So I mean, this is a recommendation that goes to the director. It has to go to PRS. And frankly, staff is qualified per the Secretary of the Interior standards to do the reviews.
I do have one comment, if it's allowed.
Sure.
Just in Tom's motion, it would help us if there was also a statement about recommendations about the setbacks. That, you know, you would recommend the setbacks as approved, or as presented, rather.
I would add that the recommendation for approval includes the setbacks as presented. If that's okay with the seconder, who seconded that? Was that you, Sarah?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if we're in
Jody,
discussion
I have-
here,
I have
the
a
reason-
question.
yes,
Just a question for Jody. If you were reviewing this independently and we made no recommendation, would you have enough information to forward it to plans review based upon this package?
This right here, or the package that developed after when they had all the facades? Sorry, I didn't understand.
If, for instance, we did not make a recommendation tonight, would this development package meet your criteria for HPO review of the project?
If you failed to come to a motion, it would just automatically go to PRS without a recommendation from you, because you could not formulate a recommendation that everybody was agree upon. Or if you didn't want to, if both these failed, then it would still, that's how it would go to PRS with failed recommendations. With the understanding that it was hotly discussed and
Is it possible to make a competing motion?
a competing motion to, no, I mean, usually it goes with one motion.
Pardon?
Usually with one motion. You don't have competing motions.
Well, we've gone through having to bring the whole project back to meet our requirements to, we don't ever have to see it again, essentially, even though we'd like to see this sort of stuff if anything changes. Is there a happy midpoint?
John, I'd like to call the question on the motion that's on the floor.
All right. Let's call the question. Tom,
Yes,
Sarah,
Sarah, you're muted.
Aye.
I vote no. Pat,
No,
say that again.
no,
Okay, that's a no. Maurice,
No,
Helen,
No,
Robin.
No,
Okay, that one failed as well. All right, I'm gonna make a motion, which is not usual, but how about in this matter that we recommend approval conceptually of the FLD lot lines, the setbacks, and the tentative streetscapes of the three facades presented. However, the project for full review of each elevation and materials must come back to the board for full review.
I will second that.
Okay, We have a third motion and a second. Board discussion.
Works for me.
I'll ask the same question of the previous. It would help us if that recommendation was specific about, well, I think you did say setbacks, but it's specific about the curbs and sidewalk on Herbert and the curbs and sidewalks along 18th and 4th. Is that clear?
John, do you want to amend your motion?
I think we may have lost John.
No, it's still there.
Sorry, yes, okay, yes, I'm amending the motion to include that we also recommend not to put in curb cuts along Arizona, and the exterior faces of the three facades we see are generally acceptable, but further detail is required for final approval.
Slight correction, John, it's Herbert, not Arizona.
Herbert, sorry about that.
That's
I'll
okay.
get it right in the minutes. Does this look more acceptable to everybody so that they can conceptually move forward, but we still get to review the project?
Yes.
Is it acceptable to the seconder of the motion?
I think
Yes.
that's Maurice.
Yes, it's acceptable to me.
Jody, does this work for your purposes?
Not really. Because it's, again, one package. I don't know that, I mean,
Is it clear direction to the applicant of what they will need when they come back for full review of the individual structures? Since we could conceptually have approved the FLD, the FLD part of the project has presented.
And I'd say conceptually, it helps us if there was a second review and if this helped us get through the FLD, but it's not clear to me how either of those would play out. So it's hard to comment.
We're trying here, Jim.
Yeah. Oh,
None of us,
yeah.
all of us like your project. All of us like what you've shown us so far, but
and
we're
we
not ready to
appreciate-
let go of the baby.
Yeah, we appreciate the care you have taken with the project and your concern for the historic district.
Jody.
Admirable, and we agree. But yeah, it's not clear
Jody.
that this motion, what the impact of this will be.
My understanding, which is very reasonable, but it's a change to the actual plan review process, what this committee is asking for, which quite frankly, I would probably advocate for in the future. How does this work if it doesn't exist in place currently and they're asking for this now?
well, again, Armory Park is an advisory board. They're not making a decision. They're making a recommendation. Ultimately, you still have to go to the plans review subcommittee. Also make a recommendation. Both of those are for the director. I think at this point, the director and staff will sit down to discuss how this would potentially play out in a decision letter.
Yeah. And
So their
that
motion
definitely helps.
and their approval of whatever their final motion is will be this group's final recommendation.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that staff would have to sit down with the director in formulating the decision letter to figure out how this will play out.
To
As
be
Jim-
determined, in
it's-
other words.
Pardon?
It's a clear recommendation from this group. It's just not clear how that recommendation plays out through the rest of the process.
Yeah.
In that way, it's very helpful for us.
But on the other hand, okay, if we were to do a continuation and give you some hints, what it is we could, we're looking for, you could go in front of the FTD, okay, with all the tools in your hand, okay. We spoke to the historic zoning. They told us this is what they're looking for. They approved it. Here it is. Like we said before, we're not looking for something perfect. We're looking for something that will protect everybody, especially the neighborhood. So we could go either the John way, okay, and like I said, we don't really know what's, we hope, it's gonna work out okay, or we could go the way that I mentioned before, do a continuation, we do a little homework for a couple of weeks, you come back to us, okay, with more information so that we could make a judgment. And then you go in front of the FTD with all the guns in your hand and you have a shot. It's up to you.
Maurice, will you accept a hand sketch from our architecture team and a list of the items that John requested in terms of heights and window sizes and materials?
Yeah, again, like I said, we're not looking for, architect's drawing, construction drawing. Okay, we just want to have a little idea. Okay, what is it going to look like? Okay, John volunteered to give you a list of what he's looking for. I'm sure he's going to be very reasonable. Okay, he's going to ask for the bare minimum, what it is
Scott.
we can live.
We've already discussed this and it's been voted. I think we should let them vote on the current proposal, the current motion.
We can always put a new motion. It's my first motion was dismissed. I could come up with a new motion.
I'll be clear, all the three motions and that we couldn't come to concurrence in either direction will be part of the minutes. You've got the information from this meeting of what we would prefer to see and what we would be expected to see when we do it. It is out of our hands what the planning department does with this motion, but none of us want it to just go through as it is, and none of us want it to go through and hold you up either. So this is a recommendation that conceptually we agree with your project and your FLD, but we don't agree to approve your buildings. Finally.
Unless we have more information.
And I don't know where else we can go. So can we call the question on this one? Tom?
Yeah, let's call the question. Aye.
Aye, yes. Sarah?
Aye.
Aye. John? Yes. Pat?
Aye.
Great. Maurice?
Aye.
Helen?
Aye.
Yes. Robin?
Aye.
Great. So you'll be getting our LAR pretty soon, or a draft one. And I'm happy to come and walk you through some of my concerns and meet with you offsite as well and look through. I'm making myself available. This is the best we could do with the conflict in PDSD currently that I don't know how to mitigate tonight. So I hope you know that we've done a good faith effort to try to accommodate the concerns.
Oh, definitely. And we appreciate it. And yeah, it's a difficult situation. I think you guys feel squeezed. We feel squeezed by this. It's hard to know. So appreciate all the thought and care. And maybe
we try to
things are
do
gonna
right by
change.
everybody. The modern world is very difficult and a lot of it doesn't go through. One of the new requirements for a single PDF for a complete design package now for the department doesn't allow supplementary material anymore. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's problematic of the transition that we're all trying to work out here. But I hope you understand our good intentions moving forward. It'll be interesting to see what plans review say and what the director says. We're trying. And to be fair, you're a great team. You're familiar with historic. We don't expect that there are going to be problems if we if we say you're going to go do the thing, have at it, don't worry, we know it's okay. But as a matter of process, if we establish that we're in a difficult situation in the future with applications from less responsive developers, and we cannot set a precedent where we can approve stuff that we don't have the stuff to approve it.
Yeah. And we appreciate, I mean, you guys are all volunteering to be in this difficult situation. So thank you for that.
Okay, thanks so much.
Okay. Go have some
Good luck
dinner.
with next steps. I'll get the stuff out. I will send the draft LAR around to everybody to look at for any comments before we send a draft to Jody to make sure we did what we were supposed to here tonight. Okay. Great. All right.
Thank you.
Let's begin. Item number 6 on the agenda, design guidelines project. I don't anticipate that we have an update tonight. Tom, do you have anything for us?
No, John, as I confessed to you the other day, I haven't done a damn thing. Every time I look at that mess with all of the editing changes, I despair of ever getting through it. And in terms of how the process works, which is a big part of that package, it keeps changing. I don't know what the new process is. I mean, I got the thing from the city saying, here's the new site, but it would take a major revision that I frankly am not capable of doing right now.
I will put out there that I will attempt to retackle it again at some point this year, but I'm not going to give a definitive timeline. So the minutes will reflect that there's no formal update except that we've kind of looked at it and all like gone googly-eyed over it. Okay.
We want to take it off future agendas to table it until things kind of settle out with the new process.
I think no update with a placeholder on the agenda is a good thing in case something new comes up or we are given new direction by the planning department of what we can or cannot do or revisions in process. But I would rather have no update than have it disappear and off the shelf moving forward, especially since we may have some new members this year. Personally, I hope that's okay. All right, 7, Jody, this is you. Tucson Pima County Historical Commission separation update. Is there anything other than being on hold that we should know about?
It is currently still on hold. I think the last time we met, I can't recall if I had mentioned that we did receive the clarification memo from the National Park Service, which basically said, yeah, you can separate or yeah, you can stay together. They had inadvertently told us to separate based on information probably about other CLGs and how they were operating. But because Pima County and the city of Tucson are both CLGs, CLG is a certified local government, we are both CLGs, we can operate jointly as a commission. So really it was just what we already knew. We are working on scheduling a meeting with the county to discuss. And then once we have that, we will do schedule something, study session with mayor and council, but that has not yet been scheduled. Once we do get that, I will let everybody know what the date is for the study session.
Okay. I assume that that study session was more likely to be April or May, and that the city's also looking for guidance back from the kind of side review that's going on through the historical commission. So does the mid to late spring sound roughly where everyone's thinking at this point?
I don't have a comment for you on that. I don't have a date.
Okay. All right, great. Any comments or shall we move on? Okay. Item number 8, minor reviews. Jody.
We haven't had any minor reviews in Armory Park.
Okay. I am going to bring up a case, but I will not mention the address, the participants, or anything else that has come to my attention. Apparently, there was a minor review in the district that was approved by both all the people at the minor review, but was held up by a planning department person where someone was told that they were supposed to saw off their 127-year-old rafters because the overhang no longer met code compliance from perimeter setback. Are you looking into that particular case, Jody?
I am looking into that particular case, and I actually spoke to the building official, and I will go back to make sure that didn't actually happen, but the building official was fine with it being in the current condition that it was.
Okay, so that's getting resolved in department. That's great to hear. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the property owner brought it to my attention. It was a comment that came out of the residential review, and the property owner queried me about it. And then I cornered the building official and had a to-do about it.
I'm so glad to hear when the process works. Thank you so much for doing that, Jody. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been something that has been like that for quite some time. So it's kind of weird that they then do that. I mean, and other options would have been still maintaining that, but maybe making it, if they were going to keep with what they were saying, stuccoing it so that it had a, fire rating or something along those lines. I can't think of the word because it's kind of late, but just to kind of protect the eave. So, but yeah, we were able to resolve it.
Okay, great. Just a quick question. Are city reviewers also being trained in historic preservation and how the standards may apply differently? I know there's 14 new hires over the last 6 months. Is that working in-house generally?
They are working in-house. They aren't trained in the historic review standards because they're not historic staff. We are historic staff. But they do frequently reach out to us. So they are apprised of what the historic review section does. We have what we call PDSD Academy for the new hires, where we go around and introduce everybody to say, hey, this is historic, this is what we do. So if there is a question like that, then they can come to us.
Okay, good to know. I'm glad that's starting to sort out. It's always fun with new employees. Okay, item number 9, call to the board. Anybody? Tom, anything?
No, I just want to apologize if I raised my voice or sounded testy tonight to anyone. But it was very frustrating to go through this process where we put people in a box where they can't tell us what they want to build until we approve what they don't know that they want to build. And it's just stupid and it shouldn't be happening. And I'm getting fed up with all this stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, Sarah, anything?
I'll just echo what Tom said.
I hear you. Pat, anything?
Large echo in the room. No, I don't have anything.
All right, Maurice, anything briefly?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, like I was telling to those folks, we're looking at a billboard, okay, and that wasn't right. And I think, when they first came in front of us, they should have been told that this, we're looking for something else. What we're looking at is just a project. Okay, it's not something we can build on. So I would advise that, should the opportunity present itself again, that, we should tell them, look, you're showing us something, we cannot deal with, we cannot make a decision based on what you're giving us. So if you're serious about it and, you're going to come back, in a year from now, whatever, we need the real McCoy because we don't want to waste your time. Time is money. So anyway, that's one thing. The next thing I was going to ask Jody, did any action happen on the unauthorized fence on that single residence family on 13th Street and Railroad Avenue on the northeast corner?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of the project that you're talking about, but Maurice, if you can email me, I can look it up, see what's what.
Okay, yeah, it's there's some kind of Florida fence on the on 13th Street and Railroad Avenue. You didn't ask anybody, just did it. Okay, and it's been about a year and a half now, maybe 2 years. So they also put up some of that stuff on the Railroad Avenue. It looks terrible, and it might as well be in Miami.
If you can email me the address, I'll look it up and get back to you.
Sounds good. I know you mentioned that Michael K2 was looking into it. That's why you mentioned it. You don't remember? You don't remember it, do you? Okay. All right. I'll email you the address. Okay. Now, third point.
Yeah. Sorry, Maurice. It's a little late, and I have a lot of projects. So yeah, it's just helpful to have the address.
I'll email it to you.
Thank you.
No problem. Third point, and everybody will be happy. If you own property in Armory Park, and like everybody else, you've seen the values going down. Okay, it goes down 3%, one month, 4% the other month, 5% the other month. And real estate people are saying that, I've been saying that, look forward to a decrease of 25%. Well, I got news for you. I have some properties in Northeast Tucson that have been going down a little bit, and now we're seeing a reverse. We're seeing a reverse. Every month, now it's going back up 5%. Okay, so this is something that's going to happen down here as well. Okay, so just keep the faith, it'll work out. That's all.
Okay, Helen, anything?
Yes, just very quickly. When you have a process that doesn't work, like this clearly did not work, Jody, what is our appeal? How do we deal with this? Because I think we all have a strong opinion that this was stupid.
There's not necessarily an appeal, but there is definitely something that I can bring up too about it, that there was a lot of concern about the process and how it worked, so that hopefully maybe soonish or in the near future or in the future sometime that something like this can get rectified so I don't have this problem again.
That would be really helpful, because I think, we all wasted a lot of time this evening talking about something that was impossible. And so we'd really appreciate your help in trying to figure out how we could sort this out.
Will do.
Hey, Robin, anything?
Yeah, this will be after my conversation with Jody, my last meeting. We have moved down to 13th, and I'm across the line on the south side. of 19th. So I am no longer living in the HPZ, and as such, I am not in the HPZ. Therefore, I cannot be on the board as a resident. So I have to submit, and that's disclosing to all of you out of respect. I don't know what that looks like in the future, but that, as of right now, has to be the case. So I need to submit.
Do you have any special qualifications, Robin?
Besides my charming smile, I'm looking into that. So
okay,
but in integrity, I must submit the resignation.
Okay, good.
So we'll see what
happens. Jody, I have a quick question, and I've got a brief update too. We all need to get out of here, and we've got 6 more minutes. Stan, I know, has sent in an application. I've done separate outreach to Lynn Sutherland. Do you know where the 2 applicants moving forward are within the city clerk's process to get them agendized for mayor and council?
I don't. I'll be honest with you and say that the city clerk has been kind of slow, because I've had some other, surprise, I've had some other appointees in other advisory boards that they have not moved on, even though they've been hassled. So I have another meeting or another email that I'm needing to send tomorrow to hassle again, but I haven't had much luck.
Okay, is it all right if I go ahead and reach out to the city clerk's office because this needs to be resolved? And
You're welcome to do that.
okay, and just another update, Kai Shane has decided not to join us, so we only have 2 candidates moving forward, and since Robin will be stepping down, I request that we add and notice the next regular advisory board meeting where people can present themselves to be recommended by this board to mayor and council for additional members. And I'd like to see that on the next one. The other thing, there is a UDC update moving through the process. It went to the planning commission. They had a study session. Comments were received. I, as development chair of APNA, sent a letter in. It's one of the subjects, and I did speak on it at the hearing. But it will be going to mayor and council for their consideration, and I've heard mixed feelings among them. One of the changes that I saw that could be potentially impacting historic districts is a 75-year shift so that new structures can be built in the front perimeter yard, including carports and shade structures. I asked them to look at how that might impact historic districts. They did nothing with that. If you are concerned individually or have thoughts about that, mayor and council probably will be scheduling it in March. That's about it for me on other things. So Jody, future agenda items.
This time I don't think we have anything on the horizon, but I'm sure there may be something coming up. I just don't have a particular address for you.
Okay, and plans review where potentially that last project will be going is on the 9th, and it is a public meeting that we can attend.
Potentially on the 9th. In theory, we'll have several items going to plans review. So we'll have to figure out who's good and when. There is no meeting tomorrow. What are you? No, Thursday. Sorry, there's no meeting for PRS Thursday. This Thursday.
Full disclosure, Martha and I went to almost all of the PRSs, especially if they were cases. And also attend the historical commission. So if there are other members of this board who are so interested, I encourage you to look into that because it influences the way we do things forward. Okay, I guess it's time for adjournment, and we've got 2 minutes just shy of the 3 hours. Thank you for electing me chair. I'm going to try to keep going the way Martha did and keep it open and whatever. But I want to thank you all for sitting through this unfortunate situation tonight and providing really good feedback. And I will individually email you a draft LAR for comments before I send the final draft on to Jody. Jody, when do you think the video will be posted? Because I may need that for some of the people I could not hear tonight.
It should be posted tomorrow.
Okay, fabulous. I will try to get it out as soon as possible. Okay, 9:29, motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thanks so much. Jody, if you can, give me a call so we can chat at some point. I know you're very busy.